Hey y'all, you see me in the same shirt, don't say anything. Mind your business. Mind the business that pays you, because listen, I am bulk filming and it is what it is. Listen, it's a lot. It's a lot. It is a lot, which y'all have probably already heard me talk about in one of the first videos that went up this week. But I am here to talk about banned books. This is the first time that I think I've talked about this on this specific channel, Realm of Comics, as opposed to how much I talk about it on my other channel. But with the uptick of book banning and challenging has come the uptick in the book banning and challenging of comics and graphic novels and even manga. We hate to see it, but it is what it is, unfortunately. So what I wanted to do is highlight a couple of titles that either I have read or titles that I am interested in reading. I think most of these I've read except for maybe 2 or 3. And then I also wanted to highlight the fact that this is Banned Books Week, and so I thought it would be completely and totally appropriate for me to do some content surrounding Banned Books Week on my other channel and on this channel. And this one specifically focusing on, you know, comics, manga, graphic novels. So I'm going to be talking about 10 specific comics and graphic novels that have been banned and why they've been banned. And I'm going to talk a little bit about whether I've read these titles or not. And, you know, oh, this is probably going to frustrate me. It always frustrates me to talk about this, but it also helps to raise awareness. So if you did not know, these are 10 titles that have been challenged or banned, particularly in school districts and school libraries. So the first one we have is Mouse. I think that everyone is pretty much familiar with this one. This one came out the trenches, or has been in the trenches and has been publicly covered or widely and broadly covered in terms of book banning and challenging, as it is affiliated with comics and graphic novels. And a lot of the challenges typically come from the fact that people don't feel like this is suitable for younger readers. It deals heavily with the Holocaust, and it's told through using animals as Jews and Nazis. And I don't see any elementary kid reading this at all. And I think that a lot of people have used Mouse as a great addition to curriculum for teaching about the Holocaust, because it presents it in a way that may be accessible or more accessible for reluctant readers, which is the way that I've always viewed the content. But that one it's been challenged a lot. It was challenged to the point that I think people were trying to buy copies of it, and it ended up like going out of print for a little while and selling out, which is somewhat of a good thing, but it also shows that those of us who really don't have difficulty in accessing materials can still access them, whereas the people who need them don't have that access anymore. Next one that I have on this list is Drama, which is by one of my favorite graphic novel writers and artists of like all time, and that's Raina Telgemeier. And she does a lot, and I've read a lot of her stuff. Drama is one that has frequently been challenged and banned prior to this uptick. And it's always challenged and banned for sexual content and LGBT material, which the sexual content always blows me away because it has 2 boys who kiss in it. And that's sexual content. I don't understand that. I don't think I'll ever understand that. But Raina Telgemeier always writes stories that are really not only digestible for middle grade readers, but really connect to their experiences of like dealing with friends, dealing with identity, dealing with like fresh crushes, emotions. Like, she's very in tune with the audience that she writes for. And so I'm always, even though I know that this is a thing when it comes to drama, I'm always blown every time I see this on anybody's list. I'm like, really? Like, people's right to exist is being restricted. It's awful. Next is one of my favorites of all time. I read this graphic novel every freaking year, and that is Persepolis. And y'all know how much I love Persepolis because I talk about Persepolis all the time on this channel. Bree and I have done a Relevant Comics discussion on Persepolis. I always recommend Persepolis. I think it is a great insight to what happened during the Iranian Revolution from the perspective of a person that has gone through it, written in a way that is accessible and also informative. And this one typically gets banned and challenged for profanity, violence, or profanity and violent content, which I think I struggle, especially when I see challenges and bans on nonfiction works, because it's like, well, this is something that really happened, and I'm sure that someone is using this in a manner to educate students. It's not for glorification of violence or profanity. And my first exposure to Persepolis was actually in high school, and it stuck with me. The first time that I had heard of it, the first time I read it wasn't until my freshman year of college, but it is such a pivotal work, and I was introduced to it at a young age. I think I was 17 the first time I watched the adaptation of it, and it changed the way I viewed a lot of things. It gave me a lived experience or perspective that I wasn't familiar with. So I always struggle with this whole idea that young people can't handle certain comments or content, and that can be true for some students who may not be ready, but that doesn't mean that we effectively need to snatch that access away from every student just because one student doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel like they're ready for it. Now, I think that that is a conversation about, like, if they don't feel comfortable, is there another option? Which 99% of the time, y'all, if a parent complains and says like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable with my child reading this material, a teacher will make accommodations 99% of the time, or they will say, well, here are substitutes. Or even what I've seen in high schools that typically would be reading this material, which is in AP and IB classes, they have a selection of materials that students can choose from to prevent students from feeling relatively uncomfortable, or parents or caregivers feeling uncomfortable. So there's that. Next we have Saga, which does not surprise me that this one has been challenged, and has been challenged for sexual content, anti-family, which, I mean, the couple's fighting for their family, so I don't know how it's anti-family, nudity and offensive language. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of these I just am blown, because for me, it's just one of those things, like, if you don't like it, don't read it. You don't. Nobody's holding a gun to your head and forcing you to read it. You do not. I don't know anybody that is assigning Saga as required reading. It's great. I really enjoy Saga, but there's that. This one, Summer, is one that I know has been actively challenged and banned prior to this uptick. I read this one, Summer, and was not a huge fan of it. I actually did not like it because I was not a fan of the main characters. This one is often challenged or banned for sexual content. This is an award-winning book. It is a coming-of-age story, and a lot of people adore it and feel like it is a great insight to just life in general. It's not a cup of tea for me. I didn't enjoy it, but I don't think it's something that should be banned or challenged. Next on the list, we have Watchmen, which is another one that has been actively banned and challenged prior to this uptake. It is one that Brie and I also read for Aroma Comics Book Club, and it is one that it's a good discussion piece about good versus evil, the human nature, a lot of thinking in a black and white way, and how detrimental that can be in a lot of situations. I think that this one is a book that comes with a lot of content warnings. There's a lot of content warnings for this, and it was written a long time ago, so there's some aspects of it where you're kind of like, oh wow, that's a bit dated, because it is a bit dated. But I do think it's an interesting conversation starter. But it is not surprising to me anymore to see Watchmen being challenged, because it definitely has been used as a teaching tool in the past. But I'm never surprised because it's been challenged and banned so much. Then we have Genderqueer, which no one should be surprised to see Genderqueer at this point. I think Genderqueer was one of those titles that was definitely highlighted during the uptick in book bans and book challenges. I read Genderqueer. It is sometimes I think with a lot of these titles, they're older and people are just doing word of mouth, and they don't really know anything about even the prose books, but even more so about the comics and graphic novels that come out. And they wait for someone to tell them about these things so that they have the opportunity to ban and challenge them, which I think is very interesting. But Genderqueer had been published years before it got this uptake. Somebody found it and raised concerns that it had sexually explicit material in it, when it literally is about this creator's experience, and people have just lost their minds over Genderqueer. It is now one of the most banned and challenged books. And it's wild that it went from basically flying under everybody's radar to becoming this huge thing. I read it when, like, maybe not too long after it was released. And so to have read it so long ago myself, and then now to be in 2023 and we're talking about this constantly, it's just a very fascinating phenomenon. The next one that I have is, I'm very shocked that Bone by Jeff Smith has been challenged and banned in some school districts for drinking and smoking. And to be honest with you, I just don't even really have anything else to say about this, because really, y'all, Bone by Jeff Smith, drinking and smoke, like, that's as good as we could do. Like, that's what we're going with. Because I read one article where it said that this promoted, not just because it had drinking and smoking in it, but it promoted drinking and smoking. So can we say the same thing if you sit at the table and you have a glass of wine in front of your kids, that you're promoting drinking habits? Like, I don't know. The next one, or the last two, are both challenged for the same thing, or challenged or banned for the same thing. And it's not surprising, because data has shown that most things that get challenged or banned nowadays are specifically related to BIPOC individuals or LGBT individuals, and those are the two elements where stories are getting silenced. So the first one is The Magic Fish, which is a YA graphic novel that I absolutely love, because it is about a queer Vietnamese boy who is trying to figure out how to tell his mother that he is gay, but there's not a direct translation for that. And he's trying to figure out how to do that in complete fear of what her reaction will be, and then using storytelling as a way to communicate how he's feeling. It is heartwarming. It is everything. It's part of it is heartbreaking. And so every time I see a challenge or ban behind this one, I'm just like, this is literally someone's lived experience, and you feel like it needs to be challenged or banned because you feel like someone's existence is inappropriate, which is, it sucks. The last one that I have on this list is Flamer. This is one of the most challenged and banned books according to PEN America. This is one of the most challenged and banned books from the 2022 to 2023 school year. And it is challenged and banned for LGBT content. I have not read Flamer yet, but I heard that it is a very, very great graphic novel and that people love it. And I am not shocked that it is at the top because it has LGBT content in it. The ones that are usually the most challenged are the ones that have LGBT content, because God forbid that someone's just existing in their as their full selves, and so that's a problem for some people. And so it's like, let's just ban and challenge their existence, which is heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. But yeah, y'all, those are 10 graphic novels and comics that have been challenged or banned. Let me know in the comments down below if you read any of them. Don't forget that this is Banned Books Week. I will definitely have some resources in the comment box, in the description box down below for you to check out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content from me, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll be back with another video soon.